Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the next lesson in our STEM Lockdown Digital School. Welcome to lesson, what are we on now? Lesson 6. Let's get started. Okay, so as always, this is Grade 10 Information Technology, and my name is Karen Anderson, and I'm going to be presenting you with looking at the round 2 function, which we don't see that often, but it's quite useful to actually know how it works because it can actually be a little bit tricky. We're going to look at unit conversion. So what is the logic involved in converting between different units? Then we're going to have a look at some date functions. So how do we manipulate and use dates in Delphi? And then we're going to apply div and mod. Now, I explained div and mod a while ago. I will go over it again because I know that it seems to be something that people get confused about. So I will quickly recap what mod and div are, and then we'll look at an example. Okay. What I am also going to do today when I get on is I'm going to rather show you the code in this PowerPoint presentation rather than you having to watch me type slowly and misspell things. Okay, so let's start. Round 2 is different to round. Okay, round 2 rounds to the nearest power of 10. So if you have a look at what I've got over here, this is what the code looks like. So our answer will get the value of round 2, whatever your variable is, comma, and the power of 10 that you want to round that number to. So if you have a look over here, if I said -3, I'm rounding to the nearest 3 decimal places. If I say -2, I'm rounding to the nearest 2 decimal places, which is probably the most important one to remember. If it's -1, it's to 1 decimal place. If I go up into my positives, if I say round to comma 1, I'm rounding to the nearest 10. And if I say comma 2, I'm rounding to the nearest 100. And if I say comma 3, I'm rounding to the nearest 1,000. So what I've done here in this example is I've given you the same number, and I've shown you how its output will change depending on how I round it. Now, there's one thing that I must point out to you guys here, okay? Rounding is different to formatting. So if I take this 1234.567 and I apply float to string F to it, and I format it to 1 decimal place, it's going to display 1234.6. It's going to display it, but it's still going to, if I use this number in a calculation, it will still use the whole number in a calculation. Whereas when I use round 2 or round, and I then use our answer in a calculation, it's going to use the new rounded value in that calculation. So you need to see the difference between actually rounding the number and formatting the number. Okay, so if I get bank statements from the bank and they've just formatted my money to so many decimal places, that's fine. If they start rounding my money, especially if they're rounding it down, I'm going to be upset with them because they're actually changing the amount. So let's have a look. Our answer gets the value of round to our num, has to be a real. Obviously, there's no point in rounding an integer. It doesn't have any decimal places. -3 will give me, our answer will hold 123.567. Okay, what do you think this one's going to go or show me with the -2? Think about it, hey? Remember your maths. Ah, there we go. Sandra's already got it for me. Excellent. Let's see if she was right. There we go. 1234.57. Okay, 2 decimal places. Actually rounding it. What do you think -1 is going to show me? Okay, good. 1, 2, 3, 4.6. Looks like you're all wide awake this morning, and you are 100% correct. Let's do the next one. If I'm rounding to 1, in other words, I'm rounding to the nearest 10. Okay, some have said 1, 2, 3, 5. Some of you have said 1, 2, 30. Let's have a look and see. See, this is a little bit more difficult. It's the nearest 10. So it takes this 1, 2, 3, 4, and it looks at the 4 and it rounds it to 1, 2, 3, 0. Next one. Anybody got any ideas? Okay, good. 1,200. Let's see if you're right. Yes, well done. And the last one, if I'm rounding to the nearest 1,000. Okay, so if my bank starts applying this kind of rounding to my money, I'm not going to be very happy with it. Okay, so this is how rounding works. Do not confuse it with formatting. Most of the time, the only one that you might likely use is this round to R-num, comma, -2. It's very seldom that you are going to. Okay, Joshua, I see you've raised your hand. I don't know how to acknowledge you except by the way I'm doing it now. So if you have a question, please won't you just type it in the chat window so that I can answer it for you. Right, another thing that I want to point out to you as far as round 2 is concerned is that it uses, and it's amazing that it's called this, banker's rounding to determine how to round values that are exactly halfway between the two values that it's rounding to. And what it does is it picks the even one. So for example, if I applied round 2 to 1.235 and I wanted to round it to -2, which is 2 decimal places, it would round it to 1.24 because the 5 is slap bang in the middle. Okay, we know in maths, if it's a 5, it goes up. With this, it doesn't. What it does is it looks for the nearest even number, and that's what it will round to. So rounding these two numbers is going to give me the same answer, even though the numbers are different. Okay, so just bear that in mind. It's a bit of a problem when it comes to logic. Yes, that's going to confuse you in a test, but as long as you just apply the code, it doesn't matter. Okay, remember, your code is what gets marked. If your code is right, you will get the marks. Right, let's have a look at an example activity. Right, so here's the question. Remember, we were working in this program. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm giving the question in PowerPoint so that you don't have to watch me type. So the question says, extract the input from the edits for the 2 integer numbers entered. So we're getting the user to enter 2 numbers. We're then going to calculate the length of the hypotenuse. Yay, maths! If the user entered the other 2 sides using the following formula. So there's the formula to calculate the hypotenuse. Then it says, round the hypotenuse off to 3 decimal places and display the numbers and the answer showing 4 decimal places. So you see here, here's the distinction. I need to round it to 3 decimal places, but I have to format it to 4. So what does that look like in the code? Okay, here's my code. All right, what are we doing? We are doing an activity, Sham. Here's the activity question from the Dandelion Delphi textbook. So I recommend you go back and redo it on your own. Here is the code. Input, done. Okay, I really don't think I need to explain that to you again. The processing looks like this. So our answer gets the value of square root. So there's another built-in Delphi function that finds the square root of something. Okay. The square of whatever side 1 is plus the square of whatever side 2 is. Oh, thank you, Rogan. Are you sure? Page 32. I believe you. Okay. Right, so I'm copying this formula exactly. The square of side 1 plus the square of side 2, and those have the square root formula applied to this internal calculation. So my brackets will make this happen first, and the square root is applied to this whole calculation. Then I was told to round it to 3 decimal places. So the hypotenuse then gets the value of round to the answer that I just calculated, comma -3. This is the Dandelion Delphi textbook. Okay, it looks like this. I'm not going to open it now, but close it now because then I have to find it again. But this is what it looks like. I've got links at the end of the PowerPoint to see where you can, but you'd have to buy it. But I'll link it to you. Okay, it's only 70 Rand. It's a lot cheaper than all the other textbooks out there. Well, some of the other textbooks out there. Right, let's move on. So now my output is once again into a rich edit. Okay, sorry, it's called Dandelion Delphi, but the dandelion is written with a 1 and a 0 in place of the I-O at the end. Okay, but I'll show you at the end of the lesson. There we go. Somebody's got it. Okay, Jared, thank you. And there Callum's even put the link into where you can find it on the Etsy store. Thank you, Callum. Okay, you guys are very useful. It's wonderful. Okay, output. The only thing I want to point out here is my float to string F then formats to 4 decimal places. Okay, so that's where the showing the 4 decimal places is concerned. And this is then what the output will look like. So if the user puts 4 in for the first number and 9 in for the other, in other words, the 2 sides of the triangle, okay, the hypotenuse is going to be 10.2960. And it's always going to show a 0 because we round it to 3 decimal places. Okay, 65, I think it's 70, but anyway. Right, on to another one. Here's another question. Okay, this is in the bus menu option under the seal. Now you've got to look at this because now you need to start using logic. Okay, you need to think as you read. Your school would like to book a bus for the soccer team. There are 11 players, 2 reserves, and 1 coach per team. So immediately you should be looking at that and going, okay, 11 plus 2 reserves gives me 13 plus a coach. That means there are 14 people going on a bus, okay, or in a team. A bus has 40 passenger seats available. Store the input from the user that was entered in the spin edit for the number of teams that need to be transported. So now we've got 14 and however many teams the user is going to enter. Allow the user to enter the cost per bus, making use of a dialog box. In a test, okay, guys, you're getting off topic here. In a test, they're not going to put the input box in brackets. They're only going to have the dialog box, okay? And it has to have a default value of 3,500 Rand. Calculate and display the number of buses that need to be rented and the total cost as a Rand value rounded off to 2 decimal places. I know I'm reading to you, and maybe that's why you're bored, but pay attention anyway, because there's a lot of information in this that I have seen children not read, and then they lose focus and they lose marks because they've missed stuff. Okay, Daniel, the host will kick you out if you're not paying attention. Right, let's have a look at our code. So our input, we know. Please remember that you had to read the number of teams in through the spin edit. A spin edit has a value property. It is already an integer, so there's no conversion needed. When it comes to the input box, and this is the kind of thing that people miss when they're too busy typing random stuff in chats. The question specifically said use this as the default value. I guarantee you that I, as a teacher, would give marks for having read that instruction. Okay, then your input box code is the same. Remember, you've got 3 arguments. We discussed yesterday how that appears on the screen. And this now has to be converted from a string to a float because it's got to be placed in a real value. Then my processing, okay, like I said to you, you had to work out that there will be 14 people in a particular team. The users entered how many teams are going, which means it's going to be I team times 14. Then there's nothing in here except for the heading about using the seal function. So again, you have got to think, okay? It says I buses gets the value of seal I learners divided by 40. Why do I need to use the ceil function? Now, it doesn't matter what you call your variables as long as you put the data type letter in front of them. Now answer my question. Why is the ceil function necessary for this particular question? Okay, good. You can't take half a team. Well done, Ruben. I have to make sure, even if I've got one extra person left over, we can't all pile on the bus and go, oh, cheers, dude. Sorry, there's no space for you. If there's only one person left over, he has got to get his own bus. So therefore, whatever number of learners there are, I need to divide by 40 because that's how many a bus can take. And I need to round it up because that guy is now going to get his own bus to go and play in the soccer tournament. Lucky him. Maybe it'll be the coach. Right. And then finally, you were told to round the cost to 2 decimal places. Remember, actually round it. So now it's going to be I buses, which is the number of buses, times R cost per bus, which is what the user told me it was in my input box. And then my output is going to be the number of passengers is so much, which is the number of learners that I calculated. The number of buses is going to be I buses. Notice, ceil returned an integer. Can't have 2.5 buses. And then I'm formatting the final to display to 2 decimal places. How do you know how to round up and when to round down? You've got to read the instructions. The instructions will give you a clue. Okay. Yes, you wouldn't have any decimals in this situation. You are 100% correct. Okay, so here's my sample output. Ceil means rounding up, as in ceiling. Okay, so there's a ceil function. I have done it in a previous lesson, and there's a floor function. Ceil will round up. So even if the answer was 7.1, it would round up to 8, not the next decimal, the next integer. Okay, and floor will round down. You probably find yourself using ceil more than you will use floor. Okay. Right, so they enter the amount per bus. So I've said I'm going to pay 2,378 Rand and 50 cents per bus into the spin edit. Now there we go. And the output is then going to display so many passengers, number of buses needed, and what the cost will be. Okay, so if you have a look here at my calculation, 42 passengers. Actually, I've only got 2 guys that don't have a bus to go on. But even just those 2 guys are going to have their own bus because we cannot leave them behind. And that's why we used ceil to round my calculation, 42 divided by 40 up. Okay, right. Now, let's have a look at how we think about conversions. So when it comes to, you are asked a question that says somebody's speed is given in meters per second, and you have to convert it to kilometers per hour, what do you do? Okay, and I've said this in my classes before. I don't know if your teachers have told you the same thing. You cannot tell the computer how to perform a calculation if you cannot work it out for yourself first. So it's very important to think about how these problems are solved. You've learned through the years that 3 times 4 is 12, but you actually, what? You can't see the screen. Okay. Okay, Callum, okay, so everybody else can see my screen. Okay, good. All right, so let's carry on. So like I said, you have learned that 4 times 3 is 12. But before in primary school, your teacher was actually telling you that 4 times 3 is 4 plus 4 plus 4. You've got to go all the way back to that thought process and start analyzing how you think about things so that you can solve problems. So let's have a look here. If I've got this calculation, 200 meters per 1,000 seconds, and I want to work that out as kilometers per hour. It means I have to convert the meters and I have to convert the seconds. Okay. So to convert the meters to kilometers, I'm going to divide by what? How many meters? Good. Okay. I'm going to divide by 1,000. Well done. You guys are awake. And what about the seconds? Convert from seconds to hours. I saw somebody wrote the answer there. Okay. It's by 60 by 60 or by 360. Okay. No, it's not 360. Now suddenly I need to do the maths. Okay. But if you divide by 60 once, it's going to give you minutes, and then you divide by 60 again, and it's going to give you the hours. Okay, because, and again, you need to think about exactly how the logic works. Go all the way back to primary school. If I've got 1,000 seconds, I know that the hours is going to be a smaller number because there are lots of seconds in hours. Okay, so you have to make sure that you're thinking, okay, my number has to be smaller. Okay, yes, it is simple maths, but it's amazing how it's very difficult to go all the way back to simple maths. Then another tip. So this is what the code would look like. Speed gets the value of meters divided by 1,000, divided by seconds divided by 60 divided by 60. Because per, when you see the word per, it actually means divide. Okay, so meters per second, you are going to have to do a conversion. Okay. And the answer to that question would be 7.2 kilometers per hour. Okay, Ben, I see you've raised your hand. If you have a question, please just type it. Okay, yes, it's 3,600, Jared. Okay, there's my answer. I can move on. Okay, now what I'm doing here is I'm showing you, okay, with, yes, 360, yes, okay, you guys are distracting me. Here are the activities that I recommend you go and do for the Dandelion book on your own. Okay, I've put this here because this is where you can find the book if you need to. Okay, those of you who have it, you're already okay. You can just carry on and do these activities. What I've done is these are the ones that you need to do. It's probably you're going to have to go to YouTube later and have a look at exactly what it is that you need to do. Because what I've done is I have then placed, and I'm going to only put it up for a short while. These are the solutions to the activities that I've given you, because I think that you can then go and exactly, Callum, screenshot the results and check your answers. Okay. Here's the answers to the next ones that I've told you to do in the previous example. So again, what I'm saying is go to YouTube, pause the video, and then have a look at exactly what the solutions are. Okay. There's the last one, the calculations menu under marks. That's what you should have done. Please don't just copy this. There's no point in not even bothering and retyping what you see on your screen. Do it on your own. If you get stuck, or even if you do it brilliantly, okay, carry on. Right. Okay, then are you panicking? Okay, now let's have a look at some date calculations. Okay. I'm afraid, no, these activities are not in the IT is great. But what I would do, Philippe, is if you've got the IT is great textbook, just use what you're learning here. So go back. If there are questions on, don't have Delphi. Sandra, I know you're one of mine, and Delphi is actually in the Google Drive folder that I've set aside for you. So you can go and find it there. Okay. Otherwise, send me an email and I'll help you. Okay. Right, let's have a look at some dates or date functions that we can use. Okay, so is leap year is a pretty common one. The is leap year function, you apply it to a particular year. There we go, thank you, Callum. And it will return whether that year is a leap year. Okay, so is leap year 2020 will return true. Year of extracts the year from a particular date. Now, this date here is also a function. Okay, you don't need to get a hacked version of Delphi because you can get it for free as a community edition. Okay, ma'am, can you show us the questions after the lesson because I don't have the textbook? I will show them to you quickly. Okay, because obviously you should be buying the book. Okay. All right, so let's get back here. Year of date returns the year from a particular date. So like if I put today's date in, and this is a function too that extracts the date from my computer, it's going to return 2020. Delphi 7 is good enough, yes. Date to string, if I apply that to a date function, it's going to give me the current date from my computer system as a string, which is important if I want to output the date. Remember I showed you a few lessons ago, the format date time. Date to string will just take the system date and convert it to a string. But you have to be aware, oopsie, sorry, I was going too far. You have to be aware, and I'll show you just now, that it uses whatever your system date is. So the format that your computer has the date in, okay, is going to be how it displays it when you apply date to string. Years between will calculate the number of years between two specific dates, and days between will return the number of days between two specific dates. Okay, let's have a look at how we use these. Okay, so if I sign I year 2020 and then I put it in my call statement, then B leap is going to hold true. Okay, D date 1 is going to get string to date and a date. D date 2 gets string to date and this date. So here I'm using a string to date function that's going to take this text date. Okay, what do you mean by exclusive? Okay, I can just put any date in inverted commas. Okay, but again, I've got to use the format that my computer uses for the date for it to recognize. Is date a data type? Yes. Okay, remember it's also actually an integer, but we won't get into that right now. So, like I said to you, string to date is going to convert it to whatever format my computer uses. So if you've set your computer up to go 2020/12/04, then this is how your computer, or then this is how you have to put this date in to convert it from a string to a date. Okay, I year is going to get, what do you mean by what if we use that? Then you'd have to use format date time. Okay, then you could use it, but then string to date wouldn't work. Okay, right, year of is going to return 2019. If remember, I'm looking at D date 1. Okay, if I apply year of to it, it's going to return 2019. Years is going to return how many years there are between these two dates. Okay, duh, 1. Okay, days between is going to return how many days between these two dates, which is 366, because leap year. Okay, so that's why it's 300 and well done, Reese. Yes, that's why it's 366 and not 365. Okay, right, this is the dates activity in the Dandelion Delphi book. Okay, so here is the question. Okay, you have to store the date for the user's birthday, calculate the value of the month, day, and year, the name of the month, the integer number of the week, stored as abbreviation. So these are all the instructions. Okay, I'm not going to read them to you because then it seems like other people. Data types. Okay, all right. What are I year's properties? Okay, let's go back and have a look quickly. Okay, some of you've got some questions. So I year is a variable, and because I put the I in front of it, it means that it's an integer variable. Okay, so therefore, you can view, or you can see that this is then an integer because obviously it doesn't have any decimal places. We don't have a 2020.2.0, although maybe we need one of those for 2020, but at this stage there isn't one. Okay, so IU doesn't have any properties. It's a variable that holds 2020 in this instance. And now I put it in my call statement for is leap year, and it will then tell me whether year being 2020 is a leap year. Okay, and these two here are going to be data types. That's why they've got a D. Okay, so B leap is a Boolean variable. That's why it's got a B in front of it, which means that it's only can hold true or false. Okay, Jared, I'm very impressed to see you answering. I see you've been paying attention. Well done. Okay, and then the rest of these here, I days, I year, are all integers. This one here, D date, is then a data type. Okay, all right. Okay, cool. Let's move on, I think. Okay, so we looked at that activity where you had to do all kinds of things with the date. This over here is a date time picker. Okay, and I want to show you in Delphi what it looks like. And I'm going to run the program. Okay, Boolean means either true or false. It's a data type that can only hold true or false. Okay. Well done, Jared. Okay, if I run my program here, you see this thing over here. This is a date time picker. It can allow me to select any date I like. So let's go, not quite 2018, let's pick the 10th of January, 2019. Okay, then if I go to my menu option and I choose today, it's now going to output the result of all those calculations. So it's outputting that today is the 15th of April. It is day 10, which we'll have a look at it now. Now, the month is January, the year is 2019, the day of the week was a Thursday, and the age is 1. That's using this date that I selected from the date time picker. So what code did I actually apply? So I don't know why I've hidden this. Wait, let's go back to Delphi so you can see it. My input is going to look like, when I find it, because now I'm all over the place. Okay, go to the dates, today, right. My input is ddate gets the value of dtpdob.date. So here we've got another property. So the date property of a date time picker is what returns the date, but it has to be put into a data type. I can't read this into a string or a real or something like that. Okay, so ddate gets the date property of my date time picker. So whatever anybody selects is going to be placed into this variable. It has to be of type tdate. This is a new one now. So we've got integers, reals, strings, booleans, char, and now we have tdate as well. Okay, right, let's go back to PowerPoint because I'm revealing it slowly. So there's my date time picker. iday gets the value of day of ddate. So now it's taken this date that I entered into my date time picker, and it's extracting a number for the day. Now, what it does is it gives me a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and what it works on is Sunday is day 1. Okay, so whatever it pulls off here, if the day of this date was a Sunday, then iday would hold 1. If the day was a Wednesday, then iday would hold what? 4. Yes, well done, Marco. Okay, so then it's going to hold 4. So it takes the date and it looks at, from a calendar perspective, what day number it is of the week. Okay, month of, what's this one going to do? Okay, Lana, if you go onto the Teen Geeks website, all the links to all the different classes are there. Okay, I want to show you guys something at the end of this if I have time. So, month of is going to return what month it is. So if I use this date over here, I month is going to hold come guys 9. It's going to hold 9. Okay. Right, year of is going to return 2018 in this example. Age, this is now taking the years between and it's calculating D date, which is the date that I put into the date time picker as maybe my date of birth. And date is going to return today's date. So this is going to tell me how many years there are between the date in the date time picker, let's say this one, and today. Okay. Day of week is going to, sorry, and I am completely wrong. Okay, I forgot about this one. Day of week is going to give me what I said day of. Day of is going to give me 30. What do you mean by fixed, Philippe? Okay, so I'm going to say that again because it's screwed up. Okay. Day of is the same as month of and year of. It's going to look at this date and it's going to give me 30 for the day of the month. Day of week is going to give me a number based on the day's position in the week, anywhere from 1 to 7, because this one I've got right, there are only 7 days in a week. Sorry, guys. Okay. S day, this is very, very cool. So this is a function called short day names. If you put a number in here, it's going to use, your Delphi program knows that short day names square brackets 1 is going to give you the word Sunday. Short day names square brackets 4 is going to give you, come, I asked the question now, let's see how many of you were paying attention. Wednesday, yes. Well done, Martha. You have been paying attention. Not Sunday, really. Sunday would be square brackets 1. Okay. And yes, somebody has already pointed out there is also a long day names. So short day names is actually going to produce web. That's right, Jared. Yes. Long day names will produce Wednesday. Okay. Right. Then S month, long month names does exactly the same thing. So it takes the month number. So long month names, S month would hold September for this example. Okay. You've got to put a value in the square brackets. Yes. Okay. A square bracket generally indicates an index, like a position of something. So if you imagine long month names has got 12 lines. Long month names 1 equals January. Long month names 2 equals February, and so on and so forth. But the brackets have to be square. They can't be round. Okay. And then here is our output displaying all of this stuff. Okay. And here again, date to string is then going to take today's date and display it. Okay. Right. Remember modern div? Div gives you how many times. When does the number go in the beginning or the end? Where? At the end. Okay. Goes at the end of the function. Div gives you the number of times a number can be divided into another number, and mod gives you the remainder. Okay, the data type of the variable is tDate because it's an actual date data type. You'll see as you get on into late in grade 10 and grade 11, all of your components have a T in front of them. If you ever had a little bit of a closer look in Delphi, okay, this is called a T date time picker. This is called a T labeled edit. Okay, so that's a convention in Delphi. Okay, back to modern div. 3 div 10 is going to give me 0. 3 mod 10 is going to give me 3 because 3 divided by 10 is nothing, but what's left over is 3. 5 div 5 is going to give me 1. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 mod 5 is going to give me 0 because it's equally divisible. There is no remainder. Okay, right. Let's have a look at this example here. Given the number of months as input, display the number of years and months that make up the months. Okay, let's have a look in Delphi. So if I go back here to my menu option and I go into years and months, this is the code that I, oopsie, and I haven't done it. Okay, so let's move on back to, because I could have sworn I did, there it is. Okay, this is a different one. This is a calculation that determines change, and it's a much more tricky one, so it's going to be fun to have a look at. Okay, so this question asks, if the user inputs an amount of money which they need change from, you have got to perform the calculation to work out how many 5 rands, how many 2 rands, and how many 1 rands that money is made up of. Okay, how do you get the menu option again? All right, so I'm going to show you quickly because it can be tricky. The easiest way of doing it is to actually use your structure. So if you find the menu option in the structure and then you double click on it, then it pops up. If you're coding for, let's say, this one, you're going to double click here to get into the code. Okay. All right, guys, we've got 5 minutes. Let's go. Oopsie, I wanted to show you that later. Right, so let's have a look at our change. Let's say, for example, the user entered 43 Rand as the amount of money. Okay. Now I want to work out how many 5s, how many 2s, and how many 1s. So the first step is pretty simple. Okay. I'm going to say I5 gets the value of I total div 5. So I5 is going to get 43 div 5, which means 8. So now I know that there's going to be 8 5 Rand coins displayed. Then this one's very important because what do I have to do? I now have to see what's left over. I've taken my 5 rands out. Okay, div is integer division. So no remainder. It doesn't care about the remainder. So 43 divided by 5 equals 8. I don't care what's left. But now I do care what's left because I need to use what's left to work out how many 2 rands and 1 rands. So now I have to say I total gets the value of I total. Remember, I total was 43 mod 5. In other words, what is left over after I've taken my 5 rands out? So now I total gets the value of 43 mod 5. So in other words, after my 8 5 rands, which we know we can look at equals 40, I've now got 3 left over. Okay. Then I need to work out how many 2 rands. Now remember, using an example is pretty simple. You've got to know the logic to be able to tell the computer to do this. So now my 2 rands are going to be I2 gets the value of my new total that I calculated. Okay. Div 2, which is going to give me 1. So in other words, of my 3 Rand that's left over from my 40, I have 1 2 Rand. And then what do I have to do here? I now have to work out how many 1s I have, which means that it's going to be I total mod 2 gives me how many 1 Rand. So what's left over after I've divided by 2 is going to give me the 1 Rands, which means that in this example, my output is going to be 43 equals 8 5 Rands, 1 2 Rand, and 1 1 Rand. Okay, so that is also another question that I think you should go and complete in the Dandelion Delphi book. There are a whole lot of them that you can complete that are quite simple and straightforward. Right, so this is what we've done today. We've looked at the round 2 function. We've had a look at the logic needed to do conversions and calculations. We've looked at some really useful date functions that I think are going to be really nice to use in PATS. And then we've applied div and mod. Okay, which I think, like I said to you, it's very important that you actually go back and complete these activities. Work out years and months from a number of years. Okay, work out hours and minutes when you're given a number of minutes. So this example here, very useful. Okay, You're always told the running time of a movie in minutes. How does that work out to be hours and minutes? Okay. Here are the links. Okay. So the textbook, thanks to somebody already sent it in, can be got from there. The data that's used in the textbook can be got from this link. On this link here, okay, this is the Africa Teen Geeks website, is where you can find the PowerPoint presentations from these lessons. So if you went into the grade 10 documents folder, you will find the PowerPoint presentations from the previous lessons that I've done. Okay, so go and have a look there. And this is what we're going to be doing next. Very, very simple string handling stuff we've actually done. Thank you, Keegan. You're very kind. I do teach grade 11. And working with dates. Okay, and that's not right. And then more logic because I haven't changed this. Okay, please don't forget to look us up on social media. Because what do you mean by the resource for the grade 10 Delphi code? The online classes you can get on YouTube. So they're uploaded to YouTube after the lesson. Okay. And Callum is very kindly giving the link repeatedly to get Delphi. Okay. So you shouldn't have any problems. Thank you for joining me, guys. And I sincerely hope that you will all be back tomorrow for the next lesson. Enjoy your day.